Okay. Trusting the moment is the essence of living. Welcome to tonight's episode. Tonight's episode is a bit more relaxed than the other episodes. However, the idea follows that human beings are existential creatures and their experience gives them access to two modes of expression. As the ancient sages would say, you can either trust the moment or you can distrust it. And anytime you distrust the moment, you have in some sense ran out of a moving vehicle. In my own school of thought, I have this concept of the pilots of consciousness. And so I began seeing the human condition as not something that has a solution, or something that has a static definition, as if we find the truth to humanity and it's the same definition in the dictionary of all history. I realized that we have to pilot our attention. We have to learn to navigate the attention not only in the outer realms, but in the elegance and the magnificence of the inner realms, and how the world is open and malleable behind your eyes. Many days come and go, many nights turn into dawn. The human being is found again in the same moment of existence. I can tell you that in my life, what was the unique thing was that it was as if the inner realms at some point communicated, and I was preferenceless enough to go along with it. And so when you trust life, you're indirectly trusting how your mind is being the moment. In a strange way, it's glorious, you know? It's every living human being. Every human being who has gone on stage, they had to just trust the moment. It's as if it's like, this is the cool thing I find about the human experience, is that you are in certain states of mind in the passenger seat of your whole moment of being, and in certain moments of states of mind, you are the driver. And so when I say you are in the passenger seat of your mind, what that means is when intuition manifests as what one can say a symbolic guidance. So you see the mind of man, think of it this way. You have a sort of biological body, and when there is an infection or virus, the white blood cells march out. And so similarly, just like how the body has a balance system, I find the mind has a balance system in regards to the pain that comes from the confrontation, or let's say a subconscious reaction to emptiness. You see, I realized something. There was something, a story, believe it or not, it's a religious story. And I heard it when I was young, I think from my grandmother. And it was the story of Imam Ali in the Shia Muslim denomination. And it is, in some sense, a story where this man, and of course, at the time, back in the day, there was war and there was, you can say, subjective intensity in regards to truth. But the idea was that this man, he had fought an enemy, and everybody was watching him fight this enemy, fight this person who had challenged him. And right before Imam Ali is about to put the killer blow in killing the opponent with hate spits in his face before this man at the back in the day during war times like kills this person, right? And so there was a story that had been passed on, where the moment where that man spits on his face, on this character's face, on this person's face, this person, instead of being more inspired to end off things with rage, he stops he stops and he goes for a short walk, like a couple steps, and he closes his eyes, and then when he's calm, he comes and defeats the opponent. And of course, guys, it's a savage time. You know, the more than political correctness should blame. Let me tell you something. We are communicators, and that means we express and we receive. Now, when someone expresses, that takes a sort of um, inner effort, okay? And because that inner effort is rare, it's as if the receivers should have the filter. Do you know what I mean? Anyways, the man did not want to continue something in a state of mind where he was trying to trying to, and of course, it's a savage story. I mean, he takes the life of a person, but the idea is that he was conscious of what was happening in his inner realms before. I mean, that's an extremist story. But that's the thing, you know, because guys, I am telling you, life, if somehow it was as certain, like let's say you knew it was a coin flip, then how would you live? Then how would you live? How firm would every decision be? It would be much more loose because it's all 50-50. And so when I came and looked at modern psychology, I saw echoes of ancient ideas, but I did not see the modernity I was looking for. You see, I mean, I've made this clear in many of the other talks, unless you're a new listener. Language holds knowledge. If I ask you, where is language? You know, where is knowledge? Anything that we have known as a species, how is it being held in our minds? And it is being held in our minds through a dependency on an arithmetic language. And then from that arithmetic language, we acknowledge individual phenomena into characterhood and then the storyhood. You know, life is very unique. You know, I had this impression when I was younger that I'm just this one thing and it's just me. This is me, and I was oblivious to all the micro changes that are occurring. And so I remember it was a, a sort of wonder because I remember in my life seeing certain people who they were very planned, articulate, intellectual, yet their outcomes were not proper. You know, it's like imagine seeing the smartest man in the room, you know, not being able to tell a joke. So it beca- so I've seen people who they depend on calculation. I have seen people who depend on faith, and I have seen people who don't depend on anything unless there is an evocational necessity. Do you know? That means I realize that if I go based on a defined mold of who I am, do you know how many things will become inaccessible? Do you know? This is why the agnostic train station is filled. And all the agnostics are waiting for the train. You see, most people, I feel, it's not even most people, it's a quality of the design of the nature of our consciousness and intelligence. We're just creatures that are dealing with awakening. And I don't mean this in a sort of esoteric new age, yo, we're all awakening. We're all woke, you know? It's more in the sense that literally the process or what birth is like awakening into a system. And so this is a system that in your childhood gets spoon fed to you how it is. And unless What? How mistaken. Anyways, you gotta trust the moment. Good evening, everyone. Welcome. You know, um, guys. What's very interesting is that the microphone is right beside my right lip. So keep that in mind. The right side of my face, it's right, it's there, the microphone. But but kindness is an art in itself too. Anyways, guys, the idea is just going. It's an idea, a sort of vision where really it's like when you're young, it's like the world is performing for you. I feel at some point in the human being's life, they will realize the value and the extra dimensions even accessible once they begin performing. And when I say performance, I'm not saying it in the theatrical sense. I mean there's a process to life other than just lifeless particles. I want to share pretty much, guys, certain moments of my life where I felt the planets aligned and I trusted it. And when I trusted it, what occurred uh, was really okay. Here's the thing, imagine being a kid and feeling you're in some sort of karmic quarantine, feeling your external expression is literally invisible to the world. Okay, so from your inner realms. So I started off, I think and all children are different, by the way. Some people are pushed into their inner realms, some people are not pushed into their realms, into their inner realms, okay, as children. And an example of a child being pushed into their inner realms is, for example, a child is painting and the parent comes in and says, "How dare you draw? Nobody draws in this house," and slaps the paintbrush out of the kid's hand, young kid's hand. Now, that kid, next time they're going to go see a paintbrush, it could be in a totally different place, but they are going to be locked down. There is an added experience. And sometimes, again, it's like this, it's a sort of art where you don't add necessary stuff to the moment, unnecessary stuff to the moment. So think of it this way: before everybody wanting to go look for their higher self, as the New Age community is looking for, let me tell you, as long as you're looking for a higher self, you'll remain low. Because it's like, you've considered the low to be real first before the high. You have considered the more inefficient sense of self to be more real than the efficient one. And this was a challenge for me because it was like life was like, all right, I'm going to give you a good, interesting obstacle course. Means into a sort of, and I'm not even, how can I tell you? Of course, that every society brushes off on people. The presidents of societies, there are some children who want to be presidents and will get influenced by that archetype. But anyways, pretty much a lot of ideological kind of stuff was thrown. Pretty much my childhood, if I could explain to you what was going on in regards to the mind, it was pretty much language war. My some part of me that knew me better than the concepts out there, concepts spoken to me. It was as if the inner nature was fighting the outer language. You know. anyways, in 2014, um, I trusted um, the inner realms to a degree that it was a separation from my dependency on. It was as if for the first time, you see most people's behavior, let's say it's influenced based on their external environment. It's very rare for people to be, it's not very rare, I mean, but some people are like, who are just introverted by nature. I don't know how to say it. It's like you hide behind your eyes until you're ready to look through them. There we go. And when you really look through them, I think that's when life begins, you know? I mean, think about the Spartan method of parenting. The child was like, "Oh, hey, Dad, are we going to the park?" And then the father was like, "Yes, son, we're going to the park," you know? And then the kid's like, "Dad, why do I have a spear?" It's like, "Son, it's necessary for going into the park." And so they get to the park, and then the father's like, "All right, son." He pushes the kid, you know, and says, "When you kill a wolf jumping backwards, then we'll talk." And so the kid is thrown into an environment, and it's good parenting because the kid has to confront the separation, you know? Okay. And I don't know. We are so conditioned in a singular dimension that we think we are a certain shape in a world where all shapes are changing. And rather than the system seeing the potential of human beings, we it's like whack-a-mole on the first impression. You know, it's all about explore your inner realms until you realize their limitations, and then you move into the outer realm. In that point, you can say you have gone from the uh, phase shift of introversion into outroversion. And the idea is really that once you engage the world, it happens. And most people don't try new things because their mind gives them an impression. For me, something I realized, and it wasn't something I had by nature, it was I saw it in others. And I saw some people who it was as if when an incident happened, they waited till the end of the sentence and then spoke. In other words, it was as if they were not jumping towards an outcome. There's the inert psychology wasn't jumping towards an outcome. They're present. It was as if they were comfortable with how their knowing appeared to themselves. And this is something very huge. The sooner you as a human being do this, the sooner your mind can befriend you. And the cool thing about the mind is that it is unknown. That means what I know of it is like I'm one explorer who's looking at something new he's explored, and then he's like, okay, guys, 8 billion fellow explorers, what do you guys see? And so what I see is a certain angle of perception. You see, the moment I realize everybody has a DNA, That's another way of saying has different DNA. It's another way of saying everybody has different limitations. And honestly, the collective outcome works. And we as a civilization have not matured to the level to sit down. It's like, when will we see that day where where the leaders of the world are like, okay, okay, let's assume for a moment, if the economical system didn't exist, what would be the prime motivation of the human being? That's what philosophers need to look at, because you see, the human being, the person is born, and you're born in a system of intelligence. What that means is, before you extract or impose value in phenomena, it has a value on its own. What that means is, you may think something is trash and throw it away. In that moment, somebody says, no, don't throw my treasure away. You know? And so it's how an object really has is neither trash or treasure. It is just phenomena where the attention looks at, you know? And inventors were very acquainted with this mindset. They had to be. They had to be able to see something from a certain conditioned value to come back to zero and then reemerge. So if somebody says, where is it's like, what is intelligent? Do you know? Or let me say it like this: is your intelligence just yours, or is it the cosmos? Right now, are you just keeping your body here, that subjective, abstract sense of self, or is the whole world keeping you here? You see, it's like we are swimmers who, for the first time, or I can't say we're swimmers if it's the first time, but it's like, imagine we've just gone underwater and we know there is something else above water. Let me tell you what it is. Material exists. It's like hope is another way of saying you're trusting the moment to see what happens. The human mind, I find that this kind of way of thinking, that we have to find truth. I can understand abiding with a sort of resonance of truth, but to find, it's like, when the moment you get an inclination that there is something more than objectivity, and you wonder about where your thoughts are, and you realize you're just present here in the moment, in the room. So, what the mind is, what the inner realms are, is how you are actually experiencing yourself being the whole moment. This is the ladder that one climbs towards Mahasamadhi. Now, what Mahasamadhi means is, in some sense, it is the liftoff. It is pretty much, I see it as a pilot ejecting out of a plane of existence consciously, or landing the plane consciously and leaving the plane. You see, design, I feel, gave me salvation. And what I mean by that is that all the sins that I had ever felt I had done, everything, every way I had looked down on myself. You see, human beings look up and down at themselves. What does that mean? That means you sometimes hold yourself in a highlight, you sometimes, unhighlight yourself. So, so this sense of reaching a sort of state of mind where man is not just his body, but his body is still, to the degree that what is generating meaning is simply the inner realms. And when you actually, your conscious attention goes into the thought, and there's a geometrical relationship here, when you navigate through the subject, you look through the eyes of the subject, and the mind has to confront rebuilding itself. It's like going to the gym, okay, and taking the muscles towards failure. When you can't, when that, it's as if you don't need to count anymore. You're just doing it until you can't do it anymore, right? So that sort of moment of failure is it can occur in the inner realms when the inner realms move way faster than the outer realms. So the outer realms don't know how to process, so they have to believe at that point. Do you know? I don't know why, but there was this book I remember seeing. I have no idea. It was in my childhood, but I don't know. It was in someone's house. They showed me this picture, and it was as if this kind of drawing and of this, like, it was showing inside the earth how somebody had made a unique treasure and trap thing, right? So some guy had made a unique kind of, and the way it was that the person had dug to a certain level and left one treasure there. But then it's honestly, when you look at it, it was like a psychopath made the thing, made that treasure system. But it was like, anyways, it was, I remember seeing it. So what it was like, imagine you're a prospector or something minor, and you following this guy's treasure map. So it would be as if you're digging, 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 and then you think, what if I dig deeper? What if there's another treasure? And then the way the person who had designed this kind of treasure trap was in the sense that after the person had desire and greed and they wanted more than the amount that was in the treasure, that means they weren't content with their finding and they just continued their search. The person went, and then it was a booby trap where the walls would suddenly fall on you. Do you know? And so it was this kind of very strange thing that I saw. It's as if the mind of man is not just here to do task A and task B and task C. It's like we are here to be aware of ABC and all the potential ways they are. And so it's as if the future generations, I feel, they have better antennas. Do you know? So if we don't have this relationship as human beings, but what if not all thoughts, as traditionally considered, are generated by you? Maybe the reception of the universe is you, but the signal. So you see, how could you be a character? How could life be an adventure if it's all known? So why are we seeking to know it all rather than actually wondering, okay, eyes are open once, what is this? I feel that is the rawest state. And I feel subconsciously every human being, the moment they are born and the moment they get certain subjective architecture, their mind spirals it. Imagination is spiraling through various dimensions, and so it's like when you get comfortable with the objective realm. So imagine you have this is a sort of ultimate contentment with the objective realm, which is the realization of the mind, right? So what that means is you just think about, as a human being, all right, what are my desires? It's like you want to interview your own desires, you know? When you put down the weapon of matter, you still realize you have shielded all phenomena through space. And when you put down the shield, you have put down the sword of matter and the shield of space consciousness. And then when you stand there raw, a sort of nakedness of soul alone in cosmic being, and when you experience that, you recognize the inseparability of the self, of whatever sense of self you have painted in the macro. And what that means is you think you are on earth, and that thought is a great salesman. But imagine that you were in heaven first. Imagine the mind is in heaven, but it is in a heaven of its own choice. The attention navigates in many ways. The winds of evolution move through the eyes of many beings. And we find ourselves where? It's as if, I'm pretty sure Beethoven was enlightened. Let me tell you why. He has this quote where he says, "Don't just practice your art, but force your way into its secrets. For it and knowledge can raise man to the divine, can raise men to the divine." And what he meant was as if this dude realized that life was the grand symphony, and every day he had woken up, every day he had held that conductor stick, it was as if what was holding him like a conductor stick, and his mind had opened up to its universal dimensions. And what that means is, I'm telling you, better than any voice, better than any teacher, external teacher, or teaching, or hidden truth, is your own mind. It is the ultimate portal to all dimensions and all phenomena. And for the first time, let us usher in Civilization 2.0. Let us realize that it's a chess game and only a few chess moves can lead to our advancement. Simple changes will make the macrocosm worship. How can I tell you? Will make the macrocosm celebrate you. It's as if they're like, imagine, imagine they say, "Mr. Within, why are you giving these talks?" For the endless hearts of dying stars, the least we can do is use the light to be the most intelligent way we can be. It's as if there's a chance the sun is alive, and the sun is like, "Look at these ungrateful human beings not appreciating the light I'm putting in their eyes that's being everything." I feel we are becoming a multidimensional civilization, and it's not per se our choice. It's just a pattern. I mean, what else can you do on a rock in the middle of nowhere? You either become a selfish individual, or you serve your collective, or you do nothing. And so these are the three options. Now, what's strange is that mysticism says when you don't do nothing, you actually see everything. And you see, sometimes before the person wants to get involved and is desperately seeking some attention, first wonder how your attention is standing in the mirror. Do you know? I remember I was giving one of these talks in the UK, and this very beautiful girl out of nowhere appeared, you know, and asking me what I'm doing and all this. And I don't know, the talk was, I think, the beauty of materiality. I don't know, it was some talk. It was some talk I was giving about about how sight has given us access to something called beauty or whatever. And then it was as if she told me a story how she doesn't think she's beautiful, and she feels she's ugly, and she was remarkably beautiful, but it was like, what I'm saying was, in her mind she wasn't. It was as if she had the body of a princess but the mind of a beast. Do you know? The mind of a beast, as if she saw herself as a sort of with a flaw. Let me tell you, don't make flaws a law, because then somebody needs to come and break those. And let me tell you, the mind is a permission not to be anything, so you recklessly run towards whatever. It's to look and see. There's a joy in your eyes giving you truth rather than the voice of others. That is where direct experience lies. That is the true presence of the mind. The mind is a process, the mind is a verb. The mind is an unknown movement when it comes to the purpose of a moving, temporary, knowledgeable object. You see, we are awakening to a relationship with our external realm as if it is with the abidance of the inner realms. And what your inner realms are is really, you see, let me tell you, this is something very important. I think every person who is drawn towards knowing needs to be considerate. So you see, imagine you're a kid, okay, and this kid runs and opens history books, and it's like, oh my god, the kid just accepts the history. Now the thing is, think of all of knowledge as a question that got an answer. Now you are born as a new being, and now you can look at what the answers of the history was to the question, or you can question history. And this doesn't mean question like rebel against history books. I mean, I just mean that you have to see that you're more than a subject in an image that found itself somehow in the space-time continuum. We have to pretty much chill out of our own thinking. And do you know there's a way where your eyes wake up and open in the morning? And there's a way where your mind wakes up and the eyes of your mind opens. And the eyes of the mind are not conceptual. They are beyond the language threshold. They're that rhythmic. So this is why trust is crucial, and really because we really don't have an option. Trust is like opening the door. It's like if you don't open it, what you got? Nothing. So that's the thing. We have to care for the mysteries that our eyes give us access to. You have to care for that intelligence. And there's something cool. I think wherever you're conditioned, there's no such thing as normality in a changing world, I find, by the way. So what the status quo is doing is, we can say, it's the, how can I tell you? We have to see the same to be able to build and work together, but we also have to see ourselves different to function without the disturbance, you know? Morio Shiba, the founder of Aikido, he in his, I don't remember the full quote, but he had this incredible, beautiful sense of language where he said it was as if like the soul is the witness of heaven and earth. There is no hell, just heaven and earth, the objective realm and the subjective realm and beyond. Because we have no idea what's beyond the subjective realm. At most, it appears to us signal based, as if I got a thought one day, or it appears as a rhythm. It's as if I was in this mode and I was in the zone, and like it was something like that. So I find that consciousness, if we wanted to like, check this out. Let's say right now you don't have the funds that a neurologist has in a laboratory, but you wanted to test, let's say, your consciousness. Okay. You couldn't see the neurology, you don't have the equipment. Imagine they make a phone app here, see how your neurons are moving. But anyways, I would probably call that app Neurapsis, or something like this. But anyways, the thing is, you have access to you, and what you is a certain percentage given nature as just is moving as you in a certain way, is you a certain way, and then there's a part of you where it is the observer of your nature, right? So it's like, you can move your hand by looking at it, but after you've moved your hand for a while, you don't need to look at it. Your hand just moves, and that's what happens. Trust is the moment where the bridge between the dimensions is being built. It's a strange kind of thing where every step you take, the stepping stone appears on your feet. If you don't take a step, you don't see the stepping stone. So we have to learn how to treat ourselves as bodies. We have to learn to handle the mind, or abide as the mind, or receive the signals of nature as the mind. Or in some sense, the person is already, how can I say it? Dancing in a solar way, SOULAR. For me, I can't, it's kind of strange, but everything I have loved, truly, deeply loved in this life, is light in my eyes. And that's the majestic kind of mystery of the mind. It's like, mind, how you doing this? You know? And your mind is like, don't worry about it, man, I got this. I just feel we have to kind of trust our direct experiences, so we stretch out the edges of the cultural program wherever you are living, and we have to also be cautious of the extremeness, because the way I see civilization 1.0 right now, it's like a machine. It's, you know what it means? That means someone came and like designed something, and we use that centuries after without updating it, without wondering about an overall update. There are some great philosophers who see what's in the distance. It's as if their eyes before the are first to see that boat coming at the edge of the ocean. You know, but there are those who also see the macro and the micro. Do you know? What that means is, like, the person can hold a candle in the air and wonder if the sun is being held by forces, you know? And so it's it's reality is honestly fascinating. It transcends our own definitions. The dictionary book is it's cute. Yeah. Anything you don't care about, literally you don't see. The moment you stop caring about the mystery, the unknown, then you stop seeing it, and then life becomes robotic. That means a human being stuck in a program of habit is another way of saying we are acting artificially intelligent before we've made artificial intelligence. Dimensions, dimensions. That's the spices of life, you know? It's like multidimensionality is a luxury. The void is the standard. And if we can build a civilization that values the human mind as the greatest resource, then we will be able to kind of move towards civilization 2.0, which, for believe it or not, guys, I will probably be speaking about this idea a lot. It's I feel it's the algorithm to bypass extinction. It's the best algorithm to bypass extinction that my mind has fathomed. And Civilization 2.0 is a yin yang civilization. I'll explain that. Uh, but it really, what it is it has three phases. Phase one, immediate, and before Civilization 2.0 begins, there has to be certain transformations in certain systems that are currently going on. Unless these transformations are complete, we can't begin Civilization 2.0. And structure is existing in the orbit, because we think we have an overpopulation problem. This overpopulation problem doesn't need to have a violent solution, it needs to have a technological solution. And so what the solution is that we use three-dimensional space. Okay. We use three-dimensional space. And so that's why I've seen this phase one is build sky cities. Very simple. It's pretty much all funding going towards making our cities go in the orbit. Now, check this out. The moment we go into our orbit, I told you there need to be certain transformations. A transformation that would occur before that would be that the leaders of nations suddenly realize how ridiculous it is how ridiculous it is that we are on Earth and we are literally bordering the surface of Earth and limiting the resources. If we were all the same nations and we were living in our orbit, the Earth would be like an all you can eat buffet for every nation. Do you know? It would be an endless resource station if we were living in our orbits. Now, this idea of for 2,000 years living in our orbits is because humanity, guys, there's a coin flip chance that we're not from this earth. Okay, maybe that's why we want to go back into the sky, right? But anyways, I'm kind of like being humorous there. But the thing is, I thought about it, guys. Look at what's happening. We're using the resources of the earth to build a civilization on the earth, and all our technology is taking our attention as like this super sparkly cool toy that we're becoming the toy. So we're going to become a cyberspace going to our own simulations, digital simulations. So if we're going to go get trapped into inside computers, let's do it at least outside of the orbit, right? So phase one gets complete, sky cities, all human infrastructure. And this doesn't mean human beings aren't allowed to live on Earth. It just means that we are not, the whole idea is that any person part of civilization 2.0 is pretty much, how can I tell you? The idea is human beings on Earth equals bad result. Human beings in the orbit no longer influencing the Earth equals good result. Do you know? And so for 2,000 years, phase two of civilization 2.0 will be the great botanical renaissance. It would be that moment where all those people who've been plant researchers, their life purpose is being met now. You know, and that's replanting the earth. So we want to live in 2,000 years in our own orbit and make the earth into a paradise, into it as if like if we came and I call it heaven on earth, the heavenized earth. And it's the earth that in some sense we, what do you call it? We plant seeds and pretty much make it into a heaven. Okay, we make it as if it's a planet if we just found it and we can totally live on it, you know. So it's the restoration of Gaia. As we're living in the orbit, Gaia is getting restored in phase two. Then we move on to phase three after phase two is complete. Phase three is an incredible moment in Civilization 2.0 and suggests how conscious this civilization is because, again, in that moment, it asks itself approach. When I say inner, it means the mystical dimensions and the cyberspace culture have found parallels, so they're being categorized as one. So yeah. So phase three would be a moment where imagine you're a child in the sky cities, you know, after school you run outside, look from the edge, look at earth becoming greener and greener as time is going on, becoming more beautiful, you know. It's like this ultimate gift that the civilization is giving the future generations, you know. And so this kid suddenly is like, okay, what do I do in this sky city? He's going around and he sees suddenly there's come somebody, like let's say with a nice badass galactic metal looking like uniform or something. I don't know, it would be probably a interstellar cyber kind of human imagery at that point, I think. When I say phase three of civilization 2.0, guys, I can't give it a time, but I think it could be potentially maybe maybe 600 years from now we can start civilization 2.0, maybe, if there are transformations that happen quick, but I don't feel any more than 600 years. So right now I'm speaking in 2020, so it would be 2620. Let's say that 2620, where civilization 2.0, and hopefully by that time we've mastered sky city technology. being able to create intelligent cities that pretty much are starting off as cities on the ground and evolving into space, profound spaceships, you know, or sky cities. Yeah, sky city is a level behind before a spaceship, because the sky city, I thought, okay, realistic, not realistically, because there's so much we won't know in that 600-year duration. But so now in regards to phase three and beyond, I've I've envisioned even further, and but I don't think it's required to for me to share now. I'm going to share till phase three. That's enough, I think. Uh, until I kind of share these writings more publicly. But anyways, guys, that's the idea. And whoever you are listening, and somehow out of this world, you've kind of like found this podcast or whatever, this live stream. It's kind of strange. It's because it's like, why you? Anyways, we trust the moment, towards civilization 2.0. By the way, anybody has questions, feel free to ask about this. Sometimes it's like I remember hearing Jordan Peterson say something where he was like, when you ask someone in pain what the meaning of life is, they'd be like, it's a stupid question. Because the meaning is you're suffering, you're in the pain. It's like it's a process. It's like what snapshot photo meaning you want me to give it, you know? Your inner realms are, believe it or not, um, your lighter self. It is another way the mind is moving. The mind is moving as the body, and it is also moving as subjective phenomena. Now, that subjective phenomena may tend evocational. I think strangely for a lot of people, if you ask them if thoughts were a bit more had density, where do you think the thoughts are? And most people, I think, feel maybe like a meter or a meter and a half away from them, a meter away from their head into the air, maybe diagonally. So I don't know, but I have that sort of feeling. But I feel that we think thoughts are in the air. It's like when they say, I don't know, but it's like thoughts are, what is imagination? It's your access to an invisible room of your own self generation or self reception of the external. When we see this astronaut in this picture, this astronaut is like, all right, I gotta trust myself at this point. So you see, it's the ultimate contentment, because really it's like two options: you trust life or you distrust. If you are a person who you find a moment you can trust, that means your attention is towards the engagement with the outcome of that engagement. So it means like I created this word, I called it experience tunneling. And so it was this idea that we are literally tunneling through different moments of states of mind that are structuring experience. So, in other words, the experience is being piloted uh, through an objective movement that, in certain objective positions, requires subjectivity. And then even the superior relationship we have built with as a sound. You see, light is the father of sound. I don't want to say it's the father of sound, but I want to say light was there before sound. Now, this is a big suggestion because many people think sound was there first, but I'm saying, as far as the human psychology is concerned, it will appear to itself that it required light for some existential display, then that existential display, after attaining sort of individuality, becoming conscious of the sound. So it's as if we needed a world first, then we could have a self, you know? So if light is the world and sound is arising from the self, so you see, light has a sort of seniority to sound, but it doesn't mean it. I don't want to say the seniority, but it's like they're different. There are different modes of how the dimension is held. For example, when someone speaks, sound is holding the imagery. Do you know? But if I don't speak and I just look, light is holding the imagery. You see? And so, trusting nature is how Sri Ramana Maharshi says meditation is your true nature. It's your true nature. You are nature and you're truly being. Ultimate serenity is just an awareness. You see, it's like we think we are just particles. We are the field where these particles are administered into modalities. You think me speaking to you right now, it's just atoms. It's like you tell me what force in nature, or what force through a scientific lens is moving this talk. You know, we say gravity, that force, for example, it pulls the object to the center of the mass. You know, so it becomes something where uh, I'm telling you, it's as if it's too unknown. It's as if our minds are in another dimension, but our bodies are here. And the minds are oscillating between the known and the unknown because the body has to sleep and pretty much re energize and wake up again. And so all these energy issues we have, or I don't want to say issues, but it's like, you see, man invented something external to himself. Then through technology and virtual reality and the simulation culture, it would be like cyberspace simulation culture. It would be, I don't know, but I think this is it. It's like Socrates saw the end of the world and he said, the only true wisdom is to know that you know nothing. And there's this like Irish prayer that says, may you be alive at the end of the world. What we are, is it our effort? Is it our personality? Or is it our presence? Is it the case that before we do anything, everything is being here, namelessly in the silence of the void? And it is us. We are the movers. We are the dancers in the cosmos. We are actually the only ones that can see the cosmos. And I think what this means is that it's as if people have seen the image of universal intelligence through wrath. But I'm telling you, it's not through wrath, it's through celebration. Do you know, it's a homecoming. It's a homecoming of particles that subjectively broke to remember they are the field of their own being. You see, on some level, everybody is energy being conscious of itself now. And energy can't get created or destroyed. That's an indirect way of saying, yo, energy is the soul. It's like it's a field, you know? So, anyways, guys, I hope this talk was helpful. Yeah, clinical sword. When you say the voice of God sound, yeah, yeah, of course. Abrahamic traditions first was the word, you know? So that means, but I wonder what the word could have been on if there was no light. Do you know? That means if there's no light in the room, what can you really talk about? I feel it's like this. It's like unknown void, known singular, unknown dualism, known infinity. And this is like a, you can even say these dimensions can be like a round circle. It is the ring. I can kind of give it a good name here. Let's call this the four dimensions that I typically speak about: the 0, 1, 2, and infinite dimension. Let me see what I maybe I can call them the ring of I feel maybe I the ring of the absent heaven. Yeah, the ring of the absent heaven. That means absence is the void and heaven is the infinite. I should probably write this down. Hang on, guys. So, anyways, guys, this was a great talk. I actually sometimes when I give these talks behind my like while I'm giving the talk, I'm also thinking about other things. And this idea of the ring of the absent heaven is, you can say officially, I've accepted that thought as the way I explain dimensions. And when you have this ring on, when you've comprehended the connected circular relationship of the infinite, the singular, the dualistic, and the sorry, I'll say it again, the void, the singular, the dualistic, and the infinite, and their loop, what that means is, guys, emptiness is a portal and the other side is infinity. Death is uh, human limitation at its finest, conceptually. So, anyways, guys, this is the end of the talk. If anyone has questions uh, or anything they uh, want to share, trust the moment. As the Diamond Sutra says, keep your mind alive and free without abiding in anywhere or anything. And at the same time, Zen Master Dogen says, study the self. To study the self is to forget the self. To forget the self is to awaken to the nature of all things. And that awakening to the nature of all things You do it by keeping your mind alive and free without abiding in anywhere or anything. What does that mean? That means we have been a species so dependent on our definitions that for the first time we're realizing it's okay for the unknown to be there, rather than insincerely or cruelly, in a cruel way, changing it. It's like we have to care for the effort of all minds. You know, it's a clinical sword. Yes, it's one of those things where after you trust your moment, that means you have found contentment with your inner realms, then you have to trust your outer realms. Then your inner realms are like, it's as if you went and you found an ally, your inner realms. Then you go to the outer realms, and then you find an ally in the outer realms. And then you find yourself to have the allegiance of the witness. Then you become the silent breath of the cosmos. And then concepts, how can I tell you, in a strange way, bow to the conscious. Anyways, guys, thanks for tuning in. Much blessings and namaste. And guys, I'm gonna share a link here. Feel free to, if you feel called towards intuitively, support me on Patreon. Blessings.